Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about something that's been changing the game for creators, bloggers, and marketers. I mean, you name it. I want to talk about how AI is transforming the world of content creation, which we've already seen over the last year or two, and how that's now beginning to transform search. For anyone who's been paying attention, it's really clear that AI came onto the scene and kind of kicked open the door of content creation. And this led to some really interesting developments from Google and platforms like OpenAI and Perplexity, all of which we'll talk about in this video. We're going to talk about OpenAI's new SearchGPT, Google's Search Generative experience. I mean, there's a lot happening, and it's really crucial to know how these changes will impact the way that we create and distribute content in the future. If you're in the business of blogging or content creation or digital marketing, this is something that you're going to want to make sure to pay attention to. So I'm going to break down what's been going on with all of this, and I'm going to give you some of my own thoughts about these changes and share some of the things that I think you should be looking out for as these changes happen. If you don't know me, I've been working in SEO and marketing for over 7 years as a consultant, and I still work with agencies and brands today while also experimenting on Create and Go and other websites with different strategies and approaches. So in this video, I'm going to cover the main things that I'm looking out for with all of the AI developments that are coming out seemingly every week and what you should be paying attention to for your own business and the content that you're creating. So first, let's talk about the rise of AI in search. At the end of 2022, ChatGPT started to completely reshape the way that we think about discovering things and finding answers. Suddenly, this idea of just scrolling through, the traditional blue links endlessly, the way Google has since the inception of PageRank, started to seem less like where the future's going. Which leads to the question, why would anyone scroll through Google when you can use something like ChatGPT or SGE for a direct answer? Well, honestly, for many reasons. First, I would say it's just plain old habit. We know that it's complicated to shift an entire user experience of a business without affecting the satisfaction of users and creators, and Google can't just make that shift seemingly out of nowhere. Another reason being that there's a lot of issues with hallucinations and risk of accuracy with large language models like Claude, ChatGPT, and even Perplexity sometimes. But the other is that many people prefer the perception of options. Although it's widely known the percentage of people that click on the number one ranking slot of Google is typically really high, there's still a comfort in knowing that there are all these options to choose from during a search. Like, you could even go to page 2. I wouldn't, but you could. So luckily for a lot of people who depend on more traditional type of search, this shift doesn't seem to be happening in the super close future, but we can still see a lot of the signs of it all around. If you were one of the people who paid attention to the rolling out of Google's SGE over the last year, then you'll probably start to notice quite a bit of changes. And now OpenAI has announced SearchGPT, which is an AI-powered search engine that could potentially challenge Google's dominance. So it seems AI is stepping in to provide these direct conversational answers right at the top of search through apps like Perplexity, ChatGPT, and SGE. So with this development, this isn't really just an upgrade, it's a whole new way to search for answers. And you may have noticed this in your own searches. Now, rather than a featured snippet, Google tends to give the user the answer that they're looking for as quickly as possible with SGE. And many people don't seem to be a fan of this, and I have to say that as someone who's worked in SEO for a long time, it does make me nervous how websites might have very little visibility with the adoption of something like this and what that could do for diversity and the reliability of answers. My guess, though, is that in order to avoid completely alienating their audience, it's very unlikely that Google will do away with PageRank immediately. Of course, that's pure speculation on my part, as this wouldn't be the first time Google has completely disregarded what makes the most sense for their users and, small creators. So, what does this actually mean for creators, as the issues that made generative AI seem to be unlikely to be adopted are starting to be improved through competition and innovation with these new AI companies? Or in simpler terms, What impact does this have on SEO and organic traffic that we can expect in the future? Well, one of the most significant shifts would be a major loss for creators in how AI generated answers could dramatically decrease organic traffic to their website. Some early predictions suggest that Google's SGE could lead to a pretty large decrease in organic traffic, similar to kind of what happened when Google first introduced snippets. But I don't think it's really like all bad news. This could potentially change up how they rank things, and people who haven't ranked in the past could potentially start getting traffic from Google. AI generated answers are typically pulling from different sources rather than traditional SEO results. So you could find some of your content ranking that maybe didn't rank in SERPs before. But that's just SGE and Google's current implementation of generative AI with search. What about SearchGPT? Is it really a threat to Google? Is it really a threat to the traditional search? Well, in my eyes, I think it's unlikely, and it's going to depend on how accurate it is. For me, I've had reasonable success with simple queries, and I'm going to be interested to see how it evolves since I've only been using it the last week or so. And there are lots of SEO experts that seem to be in support or, kind of like embracing it, and some are criticizing it. They don't think that it's a good move for the company. I tend to kind of agree that it doesn't make a lot of sense. In my opinion, I feel like I'm leaning more a bit with sort of Neil Patel's perception on this, and I think it's unlikely that a mediocre search feature is going to do much against Google's relative monopoly over traditional search and what people are just used to. I see this more as a push to show that there are more features on ChatGPT, considering they're losing a lot of money at their current state. Even with Perplexity's occasional issues with hallucinations, I personally think their answer engine would more likely find its way into larger adoption than what I've seen out of SearchGPT so far. And I think that's mostly due to how it pools resources and cites resources. It allows people to get clicks through to their own websites on Perplexity, rather than ChatGPT simply regurgitating the information. But let's not get too caught up in the comparison between these companies, because I really don't think they're going to take down Google anytime soon. So let's talk about how you should shape your content to give it a better chance of being chosen in these generative AIs. So how should your content evolve? First of all, let's be clear. This is speculation based off my many years of working on websites centered around Google's algorithm. But right now, I would say we're in the wild west of search engine optimization right now. Anyone who tells you that they know exactly what's going to happen next with Google's algorithm and their updates is lying to you. But to me, as AI continues to shape the future of search, it's more important to ensure that your content aligns with the changes that they're making, since that's going to be what Google prioritizes. To me, that means we start moving towards making content that is more concise and informative, with as much personal expertise included as possible. And I would say this is at least in the very beginning of your content, even if you're going to write really long content still. But why am I saying this? Well, besides the fact that I think people aren't really reading content nearly as much as anymore, much less like 15 minutes and 20,000 words of it, I think for a long time it was known that more thorough and longer content would increase the chances of ranking due to your content just being well researched and packed with information and resources. And it also sort of allowed you to snag these long tail keywords associated with a content topic you're writing. But I don't actually think that's going to be the case for too much longer. Will content that's long still rank? I think so. I do. But I think it won't be just because it's longer content, but simply because somewhere in that content, they are really satisfying user intent. People are no longer sifting through loads and loads of sources to find what they need. They want the answer, and I think they want it relatively quick. And I think that trend is only going to continue to grow with AI being adopted. So if we look at the massive increase to Reddit after, this latest or the last Google update, we can start to extrapolate a lot of information, right? Like, let's just think about it. Let's think it through. Let's break down the logic of what Google's current page rankings could tell us about where they're going. If every marketer worth their weight was on the internet simply, optimizing every article they write with on-page SEO, proper keyword distribution, optimized titles and H2s and external and internal links, hitting all of these checkboxes of optimization and then stuffing the highest affiliate at the top of the content, is that really trustworthy? Like, it's not a knock at those affiliate websites. We were guilty of giving into that, what was working, right, at the time. But when you have an internet that's overrun with AI generated content where people are simply over optimizing and then placing the highest paying affiliate at the top, you start to have a pretty overwhelming amount of repetitive crap content out there. At a certain point, we had to start reminding ourselves again that the goal isn't to just create content for Google, but rather to create content for users. So initially, with Google's first updates after AI written content was beginning to take off, it looked like Google's response to all the crap content out there was to prioritize high domain authority companies like Forbes and pushing them to the top of page rankings. But this didn't leave any room for the genuine bloggers who were making good quality content with honest reviews and real expertise to rank. So that kind of created a new problem for the bloggers that were doing things the right way. So after that point, the helpful content update came around, and it started to become clear that the algorithm was being adjusted to account for things like real experience and human content that wasn't being paid for, that was fair. But what did that end up prioritizing? That really kind of shot forum websites like Reddit up to the top. So if you look at search traffic on Reddit after the content update, it was massive. They were skyrocketing. And it's because those people are real people that aren't being paid and are typically just sharing what they genuinely think. And I think at one point, it started to get crazy how many people were typing in their queries with a plus Reddit attached to it. So the helpful content updates seem to be in alignment with recognizing people's frustrations with the current page rankings. So that seemed like Google's way of prioritizing short and clear answers that were to the point from real people. But anyone who spends a lot of time on Reddit knows a lot of what people say on there kind of just sucks. Not all of it. There can definitely be some quality answers, but there's definitely a fair share of crap content there too. So with Google's latest core update this month, according to their developer page, they're saying, this update is designed to continue our work to improve the quality of our search results by showing more content that people genuinely find useful and less content that was made to perform just well on search. So this update takes into account the feedback that we've heard from some creators and others over the past few months. So good statement by Google. And, they're saying that, as always, they aim to connect people with a range of high-quality sites, including independent sites that are creating useful original content when it's relevant to user searches. So, in addition to this, they also updated the developer page, and they're offering a new self-assessment guide that can help you or any creator determine if their content meets that criteria. I'm going to leave a link down in the comments for this assessment. If you were affected by the algorithm change or just curious, these are actually really great questions. These are really great questions to use for your own assessment of your content. My personal favorite quote from this, and it honestly just was a big reminder that SEO can be a helpful activity when it's applied to people-first content rather than search engine-first content. Even Google is saying they're focused on looking for creators that are doing well in terms of answering the important questions, the who, the how, the why, and things like that, and adding value to their content. They directly state that doing this is a way to stay on course with what their systems seek to reward. So, is it going to be perfect? No. But how can you stay ahead and prepare your own website and content for these changes that have been happening? Well, I think you become the exception to what it seems most everyone is doing on the internet by churning out massive amounts of unpersonalized automated AI content. If you prioritize the user and satisfy their intent, then you and Google's mission will become aligned. So instead of thinking so much about how to write perfect content for Google, think about how to write the perfect content for the user. Would you want to scroll through a 25,000 word post to find a quick answer to a question you had? Like, that's not to say that long and detailed guides aren't still helpful. I use them. But ask yourself, what is the user really looking for? You want to write well-researched, genuine content around products and things that you actually use and care about, that you have real experience with. Is that going to guarantee traffic? No, of course not. But focusing on answering specific questions that your audience is searching for and providing real answers based on your experience with that topic and the things that you picked up on, like, if you're not already doing that, it is time to start. The best time to do that was, yesterday. And this isn't just about SEO anymore either. It's about what people are calling generative engine optimization, or GEO. You may also hear it referred to as AI engine optimization. And this is really just creating content with the focus of making it ideal for generative AI chatbots to share. So this means understanding the questions that your audience is asking and creating content that directly answers those questions. Now, to be clear, we're still creating long form content and plan to update our content and continue to humanize it as heavily as possible and focus on adding a personal touch to it, making sure to provide the answer or satisfy user intent as quickly as possible through personal experience moving into the future, which kind of brings me into, like, if you were hit by this update or you're just wondering about making content, then what's next? For me, it comes down to the well-known SEO acronym EAT, or Expertise, Experience, Authority, and Trust. As Google starts to course correct and continues implementing new adjustments to the algorithm, I think we're going to see the people who genuinely are heavily involved in their industry across platforms, who actually have a presence and experience in those fields, they'll start to see themselves crawling back up the rankings. And I think for someone who isn't creating content, this is a good thing to keep in mind and experiment with. The barrier to entry for a lot of people is that typically creating SEO content has been this very structured and complex process with all of these optimizations, formatting styles, and checkboxes to hit. But if you aren't writing content or you aren't getting much traffic already, there's really no harm in trying out this strategy of putting out shorter, more concise, and helpful content. Not just like a bunch of stock images and all of these things, right? We're going to start experimenting with this more at Create and Go, and I'm going to be running some of my own experiments on my personal websites and client websites with all of these observations. And I'm interested to see how this affects things. I think there's never really been a better time to get real weird and experimentative with your content and to try something a little different. For me, I have to assume that as AI becomes more involved in content generation, the value of personal experience and unique insights is actually going to be more crucial. AI can generate information, but it can't replicate your personal experiences or the authority that you bring to your niche, your specific knowledge. So incorporate your own stories, your case studies, and unique perspectives into your content. This not only helps your content stand out, but it also builds trust with your audience. So, remember, the goal is to create content that AI can't replicate, content that showcases your expertise and personal experience, not vague, general, regurgitated chatbot text that we see all over the internet. Use AI to collaborate with, not to replace you. So there you have it. Like, AI is changing the game, and my thoughts on this is sort of just continue to push towards creating quality content for the user. With new features like SearchGPT and Perplexity and the growing adoption of AI, I think putting a focus on creating concise niche content that answers specific questions is a great step. And don't be afraid to infuse your work with your own experience, because I really do think that that's one of the most important aspects of making good content going into the future. So, all right, y'all. If you made it this far, I hope that you got some value out of this video and I hope you found it helpful. Make sure to subscribe for more content like this as we start to scale up our production on YouTube. And drop a comment below with your thoughts on AI and search and if you've checked out SearchGPT or any of these new AI features. I'd love to hear from you and I will see y'all on the next video. Thanks for watching.